Today, we begin a new series on the 7 ecumenical councils, the major gatherings that defined what the Church believes. We're starting with the most important one, the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. To understand why this council was necessary, we need context. In 312, Constantine won the Battle of the Milvian Bridge and attributed his victory to the Christian God. In 313, he and Licinius issued the Edict of Milan, which legalized Christianity across the empire. For the first time in history, Christians could worship openly without fear. But peace brought new problems. Around 318 in Alexandria, a popular priest named Arius began teaching that Jesus Christ was not fully God. He claimed the Son was the first and greatest creation of the Father, meaning there was a time when the Son did not exist. This teaching spread rapidly and caused massive division in the Church. Emperor Constantine, who had just unified the empire under his rule, saw this theological crisis as a threat to political stability. So in 325, he called for a universal council to meet in the city of Nicea. Approximately 318 bishops attended. The two central figures were Arius, who promoted the idea that the Son was created, and Athanasius, a young but brilliant deacon who defended the full divinity of Christ. After intense debate, the council overwhelmingly rejected Arianism. They produced the original incomplete Nicene Creed, which declared Jesus to be begotten, not made, consubstantial, homoousios, with the Father, of the same essence/substance as the Father. This single word, homoousios, became the battle cry of Orthodoxy. One of the biggest arguments against Arianism was how it took away the fatherhood of the Father, saying there was a time the Son was not, which meant there was a time the Father was not. For how can a father be a father with no son? The council also issued 20 canons, church laws, dealing with practical matters, such as reintegrating Christians who had lapsed during persecution, rules for ordination, episcopal authority, and calculating the date of Easter. Canon 1. Prohibition of self-castration. This canon addressed extreme ascetic practices and certain heretics, such as some Gnostic and Encretite groups, who believed castrating themselves was a way to achieve greater holiness or avoid sexual temptation. The council ruled that anyone who had castrated themselves could not be ordained to the clergy. Those castrated by others, due to illness, accident, or persecution, could still be ordained if otherwise worthy. The goal was to protect the dignity of the body and reject radical self-harm as a path to holiness. Canon 2. No hasty ordinations of new converts. Many new converts were being quickly ordained during the period after the Great Persecution. The council required that candidates for priesthood or episcopacy be properly tested and mature in the faith before ordination. This was to prevent unworthy or unprepared men from entering leadership. Canon 3. Clergy forbidden from living with unrelated women. To avoid scandal, bishops, priests, and deacons were prohibited from living with any woman except close blood relatives, mother, sister, aunt, etc. This was a practical response to rumors and moral concerns in the post-persecution church. Canon 4. Proper election of bishops. Bishops should be elected by all the bishops of the province, or at least 3, with the consent of the metropolitan senior bishop. This established a structured conciliar process for choosing bishops and limited arbitrary appointments by multiple bishops in that same jurisdiction, as opposed to the later papal approach. Canon 5. Respect for excommunications and regular provincial synods. Excommunications issued by one province had to be respected by others. The canon also mandated 2 provincial synods per year to maintain unity and handle disciplinary cases. Canon 6. Recognition of ancient privileges of major sees. This canon confirmed the traditional authority of the bishops of Alexandria over Egypt, Libya, and Pentapolis, Rome, and Antioch. It affirmed that these major sees had regional authority similar to Rome's in their area, preventing overreach by any single bishop. Canon 7. Special honor for the Bishop of Jerusalem. The Bishop of Jerusalem was granted a special place of honor due to the city's apostolic significance, while remaining under the Metropolitan of Caesarea. Canon 8. Reception of the Novatians. The Novatians were a rigorous group that refused to readmit Christians who had lapsed during persecution. Their clergy could be received into the Catholic Church if they accepted the full faith, but they ranked below existing clergy. Canon 9. Ordination requirements. Anyone ordained without proper examination or who had confessed serious sins before ordination must be deposed. Canon 10. Lapsed Christians who were ordained. If someone who had denied the faith during persecution was unknowingly ordained, they must be deposed once discovered. Canon 11. Graded penance for those who lapsed during persecution. Christians who voluntarily denied the faith were given a structured period of penance: 3 years as hearers, 7 years as prostrators, then 2 years participating only in prayers. Canon 12. Penance for those who returned to military service for money. Christians who had left military service but later returned for financial gain or status faced long penance. Canon 13. Dying people must not be denied the Eucharist. Even those under penance could receive Last Communion if they were dying. Canon 14. Penance for lapsed catechumens. Catechumens who lapsed received 3 years as hearers before resuming instruction. Canon 15. Clergy cannot move between churches. Bishops, priests, and deacons were forbidden from transferring from one city to another. This prevented ambition and church hopping. Canon 16. Clergy who abandoned their post. Clergy who left their assigned church without permission were to be excommunicated and forced to return. Canon 17. Clergy forbidden from usury. Charging interest, usury, was forbidden for clergy. Those who did so were to be deposed. Canon 18. Proper role and rank of deacons. Deacons were not allowed to administer the Eucharist to priests, sit among them, or receive communion before them. Their role was clearly defined as subordinate. Canon 19. Reception of Paulianists. Followers of Paul of Samosata, who denied the full divinity of Christ, who returned to the church, had to be rebaptized. Their clergy had to be reordained if found worthy. Canon 20. Standing for prayer on Sundays and during Pentecost. Christians were to stand, not kneel, for prayer on Sundays and during the 50 days of Pentecost, in honor of the resurrection. As you can see, this conciliar approach sounds like Western Christianity, where, in the case of the Latins, they refer to one man, or the Protestants were every man is his own pope. After the council concluded, the bishops wrote an official synodal letter addressed primarily to the church in Egypt and circulated widely. This letter announced the decisions of Nicaea and explained them to the broader church. It included a condemnation and excommunication of Arius, and those who supported his views were formally excommunicated and deposed from their positions. It stressed the unity of the Catholic and Apostolic Church and spoke a bit about the canons and the succession to episcopacy after the death of previous clergy, all things that are foreign to modern Protestantism. Although the Council of Nicaea in 325 officially condemned Arianism and produced the Creed, the victory was far from complete. In fact, the real struggle was only beginning. Arius himself was briefly exiled, but later recalled. He continued to promote his views quietly, and many bishops and even emperors remained sympathetic to Arian or semi-Arian positions. The word homoousios, of the same essence, was controversial. Many bishops accepted the condemnation of Arius, but were uncomfortable with the philosophical term used in the Creed. This is where Athanasius enters as one of the most heroic figures in church history. As a young deacon at Nicea, he quickly became the leading defender of the Nicene faith. In 328, he was elected Bishop of Alexandria at around age 30. For the next 45 years, Athanasius would become the single most important champion of Orthodoxy. His life was one of constant struggle. He was exiled 5 times by emperors who favored Arian or semi-Arian theology. He spent a total of about 17 years in exile, sometimes fleeing into the Egyptian desert with monks, sometimes hiding in Alexandria, and once even fleeing to Rome. Despite this, he never stopped writing, teaching, and fighting for the full divinity of Christ. Arianism itself evolved after Nicaea. It split into several branches. Strict Arians continued to teach that the Son was created and not of the same essence as the Father. Semi-Arians, or Homoousians, tried to find a middle ground, saying the Son was of similar essence, homoousios, with the Father, close, but not the same, and denying the Holy Spirit as divine. Various emperors, especially Constantius II, actively supported Arian-leaning bishops and pressured the Church to abandon or soften the Nicene Creed. Athanasius responded with powerful writings such as Against the Arians, On the Incarnation, and many letters. He argued relentlessly that only if Christ is fully God can he truly unite humanity to God and save us. For how could a creature save and forgive another creature? Only God can save. His famous line captures the heart of the debate. God became man so that man might become God, little g by grace. 2 Peter 1:4, by which have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, that through these you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. The long battle finally reached a decisive turning point at the Second Ecumenical Council in Constantinople in 381 AD. There, under Emperor Theodosius I, the Church reaffirmed and expanded the Nicene Creed into the version we still use today. Arianism was finally condemned as heresy, and the Nicene faith triumphed. Athanasius himself did not live to see this final victory. He died in 373 AD, still fighting. But his tireless defense earned him the title Athanasius contra mundum, Athanasius against the world. He stood almost alone at times, yet refused to compromise the truth. The history after Nicaea shows us that Orthodoxy is rarely won in a single council. It often requires decades of patient suffering, clear thinking, and courageous defense by faithful men like Athanasius. The Nicene Creed was not just a document, it was a hard-won victory for the apostolic faith. Look forward to the next video on Constantinople I.